show. Our topics are large and small. When you really need to know, we are the show. You want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you can also check us out live streaming on the TuneIn app. That's right, we're on the TuneIn app, and that's just simply punch in WCRN. Do me a favor, hit that like button there, and if you don't have it, it takes seconds to download. You can join the conversation over the next hour at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Don't forget, we're live streaming on my social media platforms. That's Facebook and Twitter at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. Also, YouTube channel, the Joe Mangiacotti Show, LinkedIn page. And for some reason, we're on Twitch TV at Joe M Show. And wait a minute. Who's behind the glass? Ted A is
Hey,
back.
how you doing, man?
I'm good. Good to see you upright and back behind the microphone and the board. How are you, man?
I'm doing much better. I can breathe. I can stand.
That's always a good thing.
I can jump, and I'm taking it
Can you
slow.
add and
Dancing,
subtract?
I don't know.
That's all right. That's good. You can tap your foot to the rhythm. That's all that matters. It's good to have you back at work. I'm very glad to see you back behind the board. Trust me, I'm very glad to see you back behind the board. So you're back with us. That's fantastic. And you and I haven't done this for a little while. So we'll get into this, folks. We got, there's a lot going on. Obviously, look, we're going to get to, because it happened yesterday, this whole congressional hearing on UFOs, which are now actually called unidentified aerial phenomenal. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's look at what's going on, because the race, look, the primaries are happening, right? We've been having primaries the last couple of weeks. We had them yesterday. We're going to have them next week. That's Georgia next week, too. So it's very important. Pennsylvania is where all eyes seem to be right now. And shortly before we're, coming on air, I checked out what was happening. The neck and neck. I mean, talk about photo finish. Mahem Oz and David McCormick. Last check, minutes before coming on, 31.32% for Oz to 31.13% for McCormick. It's this hair lead. We're talking 412,133 votes versus 409,670. That's a close race, folks. They don't come much closer. And if it continues at this pace, we're looking at an automatic mandatory recount if it's under 0.5 points. Now, Kathy Burnett, who came late to the scene of this race, but picked up a lot of momentum, right? She popped on the scene, got all kinds of attention, and started going up in the polls. And of course, people, those two, the two leading campaigns, Oz and McCormick, are going to, who is this woman? Is she going to pull from me, or is she going to pull from the other guy? That's always when you get set to get the multiple candidates. So when you were having here, it looked like a three-way race. Now she's coming in down at 24.79%. So she has 326,152 votes at last count. Now, the problem here that we have is Pennsylvania hasn't totally finished counting the mail-in ballots. And they had about 1 million, right? There's 12 million in the state. There's 1 million mail-in ballots. And their rules, the way they do it in Pennsylvania, is they can't start counting the mail-in ballots till 7 o'clock on election morning, which means other states often start taking all those mail-in ballots, and they don't count them as they come in, but they can start counting them X number of days before the election. So by the time election day comes, the clerk has a pretty good idea where things are. And maybe Pennsylvania decided, hey, we're not going to do that because we don't want it to slip out who's ahead or whatever, because that can affect the election day voting. People going into the booth thinking their candidate's way ahead or way behind, that could even stop people from even going to vote, to bother in a primary, especially a primary, because their candidate's either so far ahead and they figure they don't really need me to get up from watching Hulu and go down and vote, or it's the converse. Either way, they don't end up going. So we're going to not know the resolution to this primary for the Republican seat. It could be days. It could even be weeks. I mean, 1 million ballots, folks. That's a lot of counting. All right. And on top of everything, they can't run these through the machine because of an error in the printing. So they're blaming this on the printing, that they did something. The ballot's fine and it can count, but it because of an error in the printing, it can't automate through the machine. Normally, you just feed them in, the machine counts them. So this means that the staffs here are counting by hand. 1 million mail-in ballots by hand is going to take a long time, however you cut it. So this very tight race is down to the wire. We won't know the final winner of the Republican primary going forward. Oz got Trump's blessing. Oz, Trump put his hand on Oz's shoulder and said, "Bless my son, go forward and win." And McCormick was looking really good prior to that. He was leading. Trump comes out, endorsed, and Trump has a very impressive. It's 90. I'm sorry, I can't remember. It's in the 90s. I don't remember. It's 92 or 98% of those he endorsed has won. I mean, that's like batting 1,000 in baseball, folks. It's a very good. He could be very powerful if he didn't run for president and continue to be a kingmaker there. Either way, whoever wins this is going to face off against John Fetterman. Race is called. They called that already at 58.95% with 95% of the precincts in. They've called it for Fetterman. And this is the guy who a few days ago had a stroke. They had a stroke. They got it. He wasn't feeling good. Thank goodness he went in for a checkup, but you see the doc before anything major happened. They were able to reverse it. The doctor says no cognitive issues there. So let's hope he's fine and recovers. And he's either going to face Oz or McCormick. Now, what's interesting with Kathy Barnett, as I said, she just came out, late in the race, and like we do today, folks. And I've always tried to tell my nieces and nephews, and now great nieces and nephews, be very careful of what you do on social media. Unlike people in my generation, give or take, we didn't have platforms where we could permanently record our stupidity when we were young, right? Now, when you post something, it's out there, folks. I don't care if you think you delete it. Forever and ever. So yeah, people started to go, well, okay, like everybody does. Oh, all right. Well, who is this Kathy Burnett? And they go look at her social media accounts, and there's some postings, right? And yeah, going back 10 years ago. But this age bracket, 10 years ago isn't ancient in the sense, okay? If you're 33 and they're looking at something you posted when you were 17, you got to give them a break. All right. That's a world of difference from a stupid teenager to somebody in their 30s who has a little bit of life experience and living, right? So at her age, 10 years ago, she's grown up, she's an adult, and they're not the great. So that's where people started to have questions. So she went to the skyrocket in the polls and started to drop, and people started to realize some of the homophobic and racist comments that she had made. There's two other candidates, by the way, in the Republican side, Carlos Sands and Jeff Bordos, I think. I mean, they were like 5% and 4% respectively. So they're out of the picture. So that's going to happen. We'll find out what it is. They're going to face it. But the other thing that I found interesting, and this I think speaks to, and follow me on this for a second, right? This speaks to the enthusiasm in a party. Because when you look at Ohio, the Republicans in a primary, they turned out in the numbers of 1,059,113 people voted in the primary in Ohio this year versus 510,000 Democrats, basically half. So what does that mean? And by the way, if we look at 2018, Republican participation in the primaries up 22%, Democrats are down 29%. That, folks, what does that indicate to you? Well, it tells me that the enthusiasm and the energy is in the Republican Party right now. And you think about this, right? The Democrats, they have a president in office with the lowest approval ratings in memory here on all fronts, right? We have the disaster at the southern border.
1 minute.
The screw up going on with Afghanistan and the timing there and how much money is being dumped in that. We have baby formula, can't be found anywhere in the country. I mean, there's so many things going on, and they keep demonstrating their incompetency issue after issue. We see Democratic candidates saying, I don't want the president coming and hanging out with me. I don't want him endorsing me. I don't want to stand next to him in any pictures. So they're deflated.
30 seconds.
They're deflated. All right. So we have that problem going on with the Democratic Party, and the Republicans are energized. That's how it comes down to. All right, we're going to take a quick break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. 508-871-7000 and join the conversation. I'll jump to the phones right on the other side of this, folks.
Spring is in the air, and it's full speed ahead for your Worcester Red Sox. And tickets are on sale now. Enjoy unique bobbleheads, Unibank fireworks, and magical moments for your family on the field. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888. No worries at Fuller Park. We'll see you opening day, April 12th.
93% of adults listen to the radio each week. Of those exposed to radio ads, over half made a purchase. Despite how often the media reports on newer forms of advertising, it is, in fact, free broadcast radio that most effectively reaches and truly influences customers. Radio allows you to place your company's message directly to the radio audience for 30 or 60 seconds, and it's a gold mine. Radio advertisements are more memorable compared to written and visual ads. It's just this simple. Sound is stored more effectively inside memories. Reach over 90% of this market's potential customers with your radio message on WCRN Full Service Radio. Call station manager Chris Thompson at 508-870-5803 extension 222 or visit WCRNradio.com.
Good day. This is Noel from Computer Hospital at 653 Chandler Street in Worcester. COVID-19 is upon us, and the Computer Hospital is here to help with your home office as well as keeping your PCs up and running so you can stay in touch with family and friends. Our hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 7, Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 6. Call me at 508-314-1391. The Computer Hospital, 508-314-1391, 653 Chandler Street in Worcester. 508-314.
And you see you got Mark, right?
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
And welcome back for the second segment of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Hey, don't forget we're live streaming always on the TuneIn app, and when you find it on there and punch in WCRN, do me a favor, hit the like button so we know you're there. 508-871-7000. We got a few people watching streaming, so if you want to watch it, you can either use Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. You pick your poison there. So anyway, that's the Pennsylvania stuff. We'll keep you posted. We're going to be back tomorrow morning with Political Thursday, 10 o'clock with Jerry Doherty. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Let me jump to the phones. Mark in Worcester has been waiting patiently before the break. So good afternoon, Mark. You look marvelous.
You look marvelous as well. Can you hear me all right?
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I'll make this brief. It looks like deja vu all over again in the People's Republic of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You just keep counting mail-in ballots until the Trump-endorsed candidate loses. It's very simple. To quote the famous words of Joseph Stalin, former premier of the USSR, I don't care who votes. The only thing I care about is who counts the votes.
Bingo. 100%, man.
Have a good one, brother.
Thank you, Mark. Mark makes a good point, right? What is it about Pennsylvania? And with 1 million ballots, mail-in ballots that need to be counted by hand, what are the chances that they're going to go through the night and do it, or multiple shifts, right? In the 2020 election, this was the state. Trump up 600,000-700,000. They shut down. All of a sudden, 2 o'clock or 2 something in the morning, you see a glitch thing, and Biden picked up, better part of 1 million votes. So what's going on with Pennsylvania? We're hoping all of these things were fixed. And on that note, let me remind you that movie, 2000 Mules, is available. Go to 2000mules.com. Dinesh D'Souza created this movie. Look, they do not want you to see it. The left are losing their freaking mind over this. And we had the leak from the Supreme Court, which never happens, right? They have been throwing as much decoy and shiny items as they can, which, by the way, you kind of wonder, right? You bring up this, they have this UFO hearing in Congress. Well, we have $5 plus a gallon of gas, no baby formula, record crime, record inflation, the border crisis. And what do? They have this. Now, I'm all in favor of the government being transparent with UFOs and so forth. But it's as if they're continually trying to distract us. Look at this shiny object over here. Well, everything's falling apart. And now we have the new press secretary. And what are they? She goes by KJP, right? Karine Jean-Pierre, I think her name is. So she's reading everything. And she's dangerously close to a Kamala word salad when she's trying to answer questions. Not impressed with her yet. We're going to give her enough time to see what happens. But she's one of these don't answer the question persons already. You can see that because Peter Doocy asked her straight up question. No. Jeff Bezos. Oh, that's another thing, right? All of a sudden, we got these billionaires, the richest man in the world, the second richest man, not in the world, in the country. And they both, within a 24-hour period, targeted the Biden administration, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. And of course, White House has no problem coming back to Bezos, who has been a huge Democrat supporter, right? We've looked at the donations from the employees and executives from these companies, right? We always look at Facebook and Twitter, Amazon, and it's always incredibly, the lion's share is Democrat donors, plus what they do, Jeff Bezos does himself. And for some reason, the White House can't make the distinction between taxes and inflation. They keep trying to to connect billionaires not paying their fair share with somehow that has something to do with inflation. How do you get there? That has nothing to do with it. And these are what these guys are saying. But let's put a pin in there for a second. So we've got gas prices, by the way, another record. Today, the average price that they average out, right? Because you go to California, they're well into the $6 range. So they average it out today. It's $5, officially $5.55. Now, yesterday it was $5.54. Again, that's the average. But there are places I know, talking to people, that went up. Some gas stations here in Massachusetts went up 13 cents between yesterday and today at pumps. Last year was $3.11. So I went back and I looked at April of 2020, 2 years ago. $1.87 was the natural nationwide average. 2 years ago, $1.87, $5.55 today. Good thing we got rid of those mean tweets, though, right? Biden made the trip out to Buffalo. Of course, he takes that opportunity to talk about the assault gun now, or the assault weapons, and banning them again, which I always find interesting, because what do they mean? And I'd like to have somebody ask Joe Biden, when you say assault weapon, could you explain what guns do you mean? You see, Democrats often don't seem to understand guns too well. Maybe they're not shooters, they're not NRA members, they're not hunters, but they can often refer to semi-automatic weapons as automatic weapons, and they may not understand that difference, or they call a simple gun like an AR-15 an assault weapon. So what is the definition? One could argue every gun's an assault weapon. I mean, so what in their mind are they meaning by that? And an AR-15, folks, in case you don't already know, that's not a particularly powerful rifle. It's really cool looking. It kind of looks like a military gun, right? But it's a 22 in essence. And guns that aren't as fierce looking are far more powerful than that, but nobody's paying attention to those. So what does Joe mean by the assault weapon? My point being, why aren't you focusing on the double-digit shootings happening in major cities in the country every weekend with murders involved? Right? We're talking 13, 17, sometimes in the 20s, shootings taking place in these cities. And why aren't we seeing that on the news Monday? Why aren't you concentrating on that? And stop worrying about the legal gun-carrying individuals who register their weapons like they're supposed to. Good chance that they're probably NRA members or GO members, right? They practice gun safety. They lock their weapons up. They might go to the range on a regular basis to just keep the handling and their shooting proficient. And where we have way more guns in this country than we do humans, if the law-abiding citizen gun owner was the problem, when we have 2 billion rounds of ammunition in this country, you would know it. So focus on the crime and the criminals who are misusing the weapons. Why aren't we paying that kind of attention to these cities, most of them blue, with these double-digit shootings every single weekend? Why aren't you in there finding out who has the illegal guns? Who has guns with records? Who are the felons with guns illegally because they shouldn't have one? And why do you get rid of, like in New York, you get rid of the task force that was the gang task force? These were the guys and women, undercover and detectives, who knew who the bad actors were, and they were actually taking guns off the street that shouldn't be on the street. So whenever this happens, they go for the gun control and more laws, yet they don't enforce the laws that we already have. Look at this Buffalo, New York shooting. The 18-year-old kid here, who bought a gun. You got to be 21. So where did he buy this gun? And why wasn't he on the list? This is someone that the authorities actually got the report from the school that he said he wanted to do a murder-suicide shooting at a school. He gets interviewed, and he's not put on any list. They don't stop him the ability to buy a gun. I still don't understand how he was able to buy a gun at 18. So I haven't seen that addressed. Maybe there's reporters don't know to ask that. I don't know what the deal is there. All right. We're going to have to take a break shortly. Obviously, there's a couple more things I want to hit before we get to the UFO thing. By the way, NATO, as you heard, Sweden and Finland, they're putting their membership bids up. And I think the irony here is, folks, that Putin, he fabricated a threat and told his people that NATO and the West were going to attack them. And his fear was that other nations were going to join NATO and become stronger so close to him.
1 minute.
Right? Including Ukraine, which had no intention at the time. Neither did Finland or Sweden, especially Sweden, right? They're neutral territory. And you can argue that it's Putin's bad behavior and the fictitious scenario he came up with that kind of forced Finland and Sweden to make a bid for it, and therefore increasing NATO strength. I mean, talk about a backfire. And we don't know really where his health is, folks. But all right, listen up. We're going to take a break here halfway through the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you that you can check us out on my social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter, Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, YouTube channel, the Joe Mangiacotti Show, and of course, we're on LinkedIn and, hey, Twitch TV for the gamers. Don't know why we're there, but we are, so that's cool. 508-871-7000. We'll be back on the other side, folks. Stick with us.
You can hear me, right? Yeah, I still can't hear you. I got to figure that out.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement.
Did you change it to PM?
Meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on radio 830 WCRN. It's definitely nice to get a break from the heat and humidity today. Instead of the 80s, we're actually talking highs in the 70s with much lower humidity. Expect a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, and we do have a breeze that we're going to be dealing with. I could see some gusts 30, 35 miles per hour, so we've got that persistent wind in the forecast. Otherwise, looking pretty good. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Those things we most cherish are all put at risk through the improper disposal of mercury in everyday items. Fluorescent lamps, thermometers, thermostats all contain mercury. Mercury Recovery Program is designed to assist your community in the safe disposal of this heavy metal. For more information about where to dispose of these products, contact your local Board of Health, Department of Public Works, or visit our website at keepmercuryfromrising.org. Working together, we can keep our environment safe.
Attention all contractors. The Massachusetts Mercury Management Act makes it illegal to improperly dispose of old thermostats in the trash. They contain mercury that can be harmful to human health and the environment. Building and HVAC contractors, plumbers, and electricians, please properly dispose of all mercury thermostats.
Joel's on
Contact
1,
your
Ken's
local
on
health
2.
or Public Works Department for information on where to safely dispose of thermostats in your community. Visit online, keepmercuryfromrising.org for details. Brought to you by Win Waste Innovation.
I don't hear anything.
Call the Poison Helpline first for fast, free advice from medical professionals.
I'm
Call
trying to make your
1-800-222-1222
mic work in my ear.
Anytime, anywhere. Save the number. Save a life. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know.
All right, welcome back for the second half of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. That's how you reach into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. Before I get into this, the UFO hearings, let me jump to the phones. Joel first. Hey, Joel, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. What's happening?
Hi, Mr. Mangiacotti. How you doing?
I'm good, Joel. Missed you, man. I haven't talked to you in ages.
I still have problems with my cell. I'm getting a new phone this week. I've been too busy, man.
Yeah, my phone was on the Sprint, which got bought up by T-Mobile, right? So then
I
they
know.
tell you, hey, you got to.
I've been to their stores.
Yeah, you got to
I
do
know
the SIM
exactly what
card
T-Mobile is
because they're
all
going to
about.
shut the Sprint network
Joe.
down. What's up?
Joe?
Yep.
Oh, Don?
Do you hear me, Joe? Ted, does he hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Joe?
Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, did you see Black Matter's movement? The movement got nailed again?
Yeah, I have it in front of me. I was going to do that, but I was like, I'm going to wait this for Friday's show because the hypocrisy, right? I mean, talk about it. Look, $80 million was raised. And the co-founder, Patrice Cullors, she hires her brother for $867,000, and the baby daddy she hires for $970,000. And this is a charity, folks. And plus, she employed her mother and sister in the LA mansion. They spend $6 million on two mansions, one in California, one in LA, and they try to hide it. And then she finds out that as a charity, you have to fill it a $990. Every charity in the world has to do this. And all that is a listing of money in and what you spend it on. And unlike a for-profit corporation, folks, when you're a charity, there are rules, even to how much you're allowed to have sitting in the bank. And then when you fill jobs, you can't just employ family, right? You have to have actually a board. An incorporated board has to approve this. You have to have multiple bids and reviews, and then the board has to approve it. And you can't pay in a charity. You can't pay like ridiculous amount of monies that's not industry standard. There are a lot of rules to a charity, folks, and it's different than a nonprofit. And Joel, they have no clue what they're doing, and nobody. A matter of fact, remember the Clinton folks were coming in. They were going to help. Of course, they jumped on them when they heard there was $60 million unaccounted for. They're like, well, we'll come in and we'll help you find that and figure it out. Even the Clinton people said, we're out. This is too messed up and too close to probably federal indictment. So we're gone. I mean, they got out. You know what I'm saying, Joe?
Yeah. Colors she has to be criminally charged.
Oh, no question.
She
but is she
has
going to
to
be?
She should go to jail. She says she should definitely spend time behind bars. And you're talking to a guy who's donated money to that cause. As I told you, no more. My hands are washed.
Yeah.
I mean, she should be criminally charged, no excuses, and she should do serious time. Stuff like this cannot go on. I mean, the Post really,
Joe.
the NYP has nailed them like crazy. And I agree. I work for the competition, but I'll be honest, Joe, let me tell you, because I was in the industry. Can you still hear me? My phone is so bad.
Yeah, no, I can hear you.
The NYP, a.k.a. the New York Post, is not the trashy tabloid that it used to be for 40 years under Murdoch. They have new editors, and they're really doing a good job every day. Yes, they come from the conservative side of the political spectrum, but they do a heck of a job. I mean, they hit hard every day, and they're producing a lot of great stories and a lot of great columns. I got to be honest with you. I think you would agree with me, right?
I do agree with you. And what was done to them with the Hunter Biden laptop was disgusting. And as far as I'm concerned, because they shut down the oldest newspaper in the country with the fourth largest circulation, The election goes by, and they said, "Oh, we made a mistake." As far as I'm concerned, that's election interference and tampering, and they should have to answer for that. But backing up to this Patrice and her comments about being triggered when she hears the Form 990, she's being triggered. And I would like somebody, a reporter, to ask her, triggered about what? What is that supposed? Are you pulling a race card here, lady? What do you mean triggered? Every charity has to fill this form out. There's nothing to be triggered about. And if you are that ignorant about how a charity's run, get the heck out of that position. You can't tell me that there isn't an MBA, a black man or a woman with an MBA or the equivalent experience running charities somewhere in the United States that would have been happy to step in, all right, as president of Black Lives Matter Global or whatever they call the corporation, and do everything right. If you don't know what you're doing, get out of the way and let somebody who does know what they're doing do it. Meanwhile, you have insulted and slapped the faces of every donor as white guilt money poured in corporations. They thought they were buying protection, right? The corporations couldn't write checks fast enough, and they were assuming that, this is going to stop them from turning their mob mentality on us. Despite all of our past ills and ways and mistakes, they're going to ignore them if we write a big enough check to this organization. And now everybody's finding trickle every day. There's more stuff coming out as just how bad they mishandled this. And Joel, when you look at this and we go back and you think about Lois Lerner and the IRS and how they targeted the conservative groups and delayed their tax exempt status and their charity rating, and it was organized and targeted, and they ended up paying those organizations. There was a settlement on that, remember? She was totally guilty of it.
Right.
So
Yeah,
this isn't even, where are we here, Joel? The IRS hasn't even begun on them, but there should be, I agree 100%, there should be criminal charges brought. She needs to go to prison for a while, and the IRS needs to get in there and treat this without fear of any backlash because it's BLM, right?
No. She stated a couple times to the media that it's nothing but misogyny and racism, and that's the furthest thing from the truth, Joe.
It's just, she's playing the race card, and that's disgusting. That's disgusting, Joel. I gotta. Anything else? I gotta let you go because I have callers and I'm against the clock.
Great, man.
All right, Joe. Thanks, man. All right, folks. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Ken has been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what's on your mind today, man?
Well, Joe, now that we've had enough time from the incident on Saturday to put some of the pieces together, you posited the question about the shooter and how he got the gun. He got the gun from a vintage gun store in Endicott, New York. I don't know why that would make any difference as to being a minimum age 21.
Exactly. A private sale. You can do a private sale between two individuals. You fill out the blue card, the federal, and you can sell to each other. But if you're a dealer, you can't sell for federal laws until they're 21. So if he bought these guns, because I get multiple guns, if he bought the guns from a dealer at 18, what's going on? Go after that guy has got to lose his dealer's license. And I don't know. At that point, I would talk to the prosecutors. Is there any way you can prosecute that guy? When people do bad things, right, break the law and don't do things right, yes, we go after them. Meaning also, when these gang members or what have you, low-level criminals are caught carrying a gun in Detroit, in Boston, New York, Chicago, wherever, and they don't have a license. Like in Massachusetts, we have the Fox-Bartlett law. We don't really enforce that. It says if you illegally are carrying a gun, it's a minimum of 1 year in prison, period. We're not sending people, right? That gets plea bargained out. Like one of the first things they plea bargain out. No. You got to make sure that these criminals know you get caught with a gun that you shouldn't have, you are doing prison time. It's not an if, it's not a maybe. not I get a good attorney, automatic prison time. You got to do something, Ken. We got to do something to get the people who shouldn't have guns away. Stop going after the legal gun owners who are behaving.
But the question on the age, why wouldn't a reporter investigate that and tie that together? I mean, there's a lot of incompetence going on here. Starting with when you hear more and more story of the shooter, he would go to school for multiple days in a hazmat suit. I mean, there's just story after story that everybody thought he was deranged.
Yeah. And red flag after red flag, right?
Well, but here's the point. Those red flags were going off before he turned 18. So that's a big problem, especially in liberal states like Massachusetts. Just a month ago, we got these 11 and 13-year-old girls that are punching out both police and don't want to do anything bad to a underage juvenile. Well, we used to have juvenile penalties, and why should there be an exception? I would think you could start at 16 when somebody's this deranged. And geez, we used to have insane asylums. Oh, but that's a terrible word. We wouldn't want to do
We'd
that.
have to rebrand that, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
But here's the point. Society gets harmed.
1 minute.
If we don't take the appropriate action for these people. And instead we have a president who goes after the First Amendment and the Second Amendment.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing about the age, right? When you're 16, 17-year-olds, you are a minor, you're under the care and responsibility of your parents. So let's start holding the parents a little bit accountable there. And as far as the reporters following up on that question, Ken, I would venture to say there's a pretty good chance that a lot of these reporters are probably lean left, progressive, as we can tell by the reporting.
30.
And they don't even know what the gun laws are, and they haven't taken the time and the bother to go find out what you can and can't do. So they don't even know enough to ask that
Thank
question.
you, Ken.
But thanks for the call, Ken. We're going to take a break here, folks. 508-871-7000. Back on the other side.
Joe, ask the question. Was he being groomed?
The theater season is finally back, and it's heating up. Don't miss a moment with Behind the Scenes at the Hanover Theater and your host, Lisa Condit. Friday mornings at 9 right here on AM 830 WCRN. Full service radio.
Looking to up your bourbon game? Larceny Wheated Bourbon is the key. It's an award-winning small batch bourbon made with more wheat for a smoother taste. Get caught in the act. Larceny Wheated Bourbon, Bardstown, Kentucky. 46% alcohol by volume. Think wisely, drink wisely.
Today, there are over 47 million Ford vehicles on the road, rolling on over 188 million tires. That's a lot of rubber to trust to anyone other than a hardworking specialist at Ford Service. No one knows your Ford better than Ford and Ford Service.
Get a $140 rebate by mail on 4 select tires when you use the Ford Service credit card at the Big Tire event. Subject to credit approval, rebate by prepaid debit card. Other tire manufacturer rebate or offer cannot be combined with Ford Service credit card rebate or offer. See your participating Ford dealer for details through 12/31/17.
You just may have the best podcast anywhere.
Talk to me.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
But who knows it exists? Hello?
A different term.
Get your podcast
Grooming
to broadcast on
The
radio.
FBI was the FBI grooming this
Improve
kid.
your podcast.
No, I know, but the term grooming right
production
now
and editing.
refers to
Record your
sex
podcast
and teachers
in a
talking
real
to kids
radio
about
studio.
LGBTQ,
Visit podcast
trying to. That's what grooming
today.
right now.
Get your
Okay,
podcast
but I know what you're
Was the
saying.
FBI creating another
governor attempted assassination thing like they did.
Well, I would go with the Kennedy assassination because of our audience.
They really have. Thank you
You know,
so much.
was the
Yeah, but what's
WCRN gets
the
results
Michigan
on
governor's
radio.
name that
Call
they got those guys?
Oh,
to,
yeah.
Extension
I remember.
222.
All right, but I got to do some UFO stuff here.
870-5803, extension 222, or visit WCRNradio.com.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show. you want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks. So welcome back to the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Final segment here. And a lot of this, don't have time to go in depth to it, but Friday I'll get into some more of this. But I did want to touch on because, yeah, and even though I think part of yesterday's hearing, they figured it was a good time to put up another shiny object, and it would be the UFO hearing. But now the new term, right? UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. This is what's happening. Exactly. My impression, I watched some of it, a good chunk of it, and it was lame. You have the officials there, and in Congress, people are asking them questions about, Roswell, and they're pretending they don't know anything. In Hellstrom Air Force Base in Montana, one of the most known incidences of an unidentified object that not just flying, but literally hovered outside the gate, the security gate at the base where nukes were. Okay. And the security calls in, what's going on? While they're trying to figure out what this thing is, 10 missiles shut down. So now we have whatever this object is, was able to turn off missiles. We had no ability to launch. Now, they kept it under wrap for a long time. Obviously, our DOD, and I understand this, we would not want it to get out that some entity, let's put a pin in whether it's earthly or not, but was able to somehow shut down 10 nuclear warheads and make them go to no-go. Not a good thing. And this isn't, I don't think this is so much that people are worried about we can't handle it. After all, don't you think we've kind of been primed in the movies over the years and just go online, or not online, go to your whatever Hulu cable channel. There are a million shows out there about UFOs and encounters and visitations. We're primed. We're not going, people aren't going to be jumping off the Empire State Building when it's officially revealed that there are extraterrestrials. So that's not it. It's the government admitting that we're not in control of our airspace. That's what they don't want to admit. That's the scary part that they don't want to admit, right? Because what does that say? Now, the Germans were way ahead of us in rockets and propulsion, and they were working on hovering machines, and it was always suspected it had something to do with reverse engineering. But the Defense Department has been orchestrating the cover-up and the misinformation for years. But Representative Tim Burchett, right, he said, look, there's something else out there. And the Pentagon isn't being transparent enough about UFOs with the lawmakers and the public. Now, at the briefing, they had the public hearing yesterday, and then they went into the private classified where they could answer things. The other aspect of this is they don't want to answer direct questions as to the tech we have in the sensors. So they don't want to answer questions about how they know certain things or what they do and don't know, because that would reveal our tech and our abilities with our senses. And we certainly don't want the bad actors in the world to know our abilities. I get all that. That's fine. But it comes a time where you have to say, yeah, look, this is going on. It's not just, and I know it's a Jay Leno joke, and it's funny to say, how come they only talk to Bubba and stuff, in the middle of the, middle of the woods after, a case of beer type of thing? No, folks. There's well-documented incidences of seeing the craft over DC. Matter of fact, Massachusetts, right, in 1969 has one of the most well-known encounters. As a matter of fact, it was so seen by so many people, witnessed and known as fact in the Berkshires. It's in Massachusetts history. an encounter then in 1969. And a lot of people think that, this all started with Roswell. Actually, the reports of seeing objects flying in the sky, first of all, happened long before we had flight. But even if we're talking about the 20th century, the reports of UFOs started to skyrocket actually after we tested the first nuclear bomb. That's when it went up. So if there are visitors monitoring Earth, makes sense that they're not paying a lot of attention to us or casually monitor us. And when they see that, now they get very interested. In shutting down 10 nuclear warheads at an Air Force base might be a way of saying, we don't like this. You guys need to be careful. And people think Roswell, right, is the big incident. But there were a lot of instances before that. And shortly before that, in August of 45, just 20 miles southeast of San Antonio and New Mexico. All right, they stumbled across, there was Rima Becca and Jose Padilla. They stumbled across the remains of a spacecraft. In August of 1945, Jose Padilla and Rima Becca said they were sent out on horseback from the Padilla Ranch in San Antonio, New Mexico, tasked to check on Jose's father's herd of cows, and they came across it. But we have Roswell, and then the Renstone Forest incident, right? That's nicknamed Britain's Roswell. So these have been happening in France, Turkey, England, and then there was the one in California where the entire city watched a fleet in a triangle formation fly for 80 miles. So do you really think we're not alone? In a galaxy with billions of galaxies and trillions of stars, that we are the epitome of intelligent life in the universe? No, I don't think so. I do not think so. Because of the national attention of the 47 crash at Roswell, right? The extensive government cover-up thereafter, because just like, it's all documented, right? You can go back and see the headlines. They responded to this. They found the crash, the material. The first officer on the scene, he actually took a piece of it home to his son to give him to play with. And you could crumple this metal up, and when you let it go, it snapped back into its original shape. He was ordered to return it when they collected all this up. Officials at Cape Garrido crash site called the local Reverend William Huffman to come out and give last rites to the crash victims. Now, he got there, it was all chaotic and so forth. There were police and firemen and emergency personnel, and then the FBI. And when he saw the site of this strange craft, it's like nothing he has ever seen. And there were humanoid type creatures in there. We can even go back to 1907. There's a newspaper article that talks about this flying object that crashed, and they retrieve a body. And this is early days of flight, right? Wright brothers had just done Kitty Hawk.
30 seconds.
And they actually held a funeral for it and buried it. And when they were going to exhume the body, guess what happened overnight? It was removed when they showed up the next morning. So much more on this, but this has got to wrap up the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Back tomorrow morning with Jerry Doherty at 10 a.m. for Political Thursday, and then I'm back Friday at 1 o'clock as usual, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Joe out.